What's up, Grace Girls? Welcome to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast, where we focus on helping Black women change their lives by discarding negative thoughts, pivoting in the right direction, and shifting their mindset through cultivating a trauma free lifestyle. I'm your host, Courtney Kristen, educator, content creator, life coach, counselor, and mental health enthusiast living in Houston, Texas. I created the Allow Yourself Grace podcast because I wanted to create a space for Black women to share their thoughts, feelings, and stories that make them who they are without fear of judgment. Allow Yourself Grace provides emotional support and encouragement within the Grace Girls community for women in need of non-biased opinions from women other than family and friends. Personal development, self-care, career, faith are among many of the topics we will discuss on this platform. Allow Yourself Grace podcast is here to encourage Black women to live unapologetically and thrive in being authentically who they are and were designed to be, an entire vibe. No topics are off limits. We will cover it all. Now, grab a notebook, pen, sit back, and enjoy the show. All right, what's up, Grace Girls? Welcome back to another episode of the Allow Yourself Grace podcast. And y'all, we are in season 4. This is episode number 2. And so I'm super excited about the guest that I have. It's my first doctor that I have on the show, and she's a Black doctor. So I'm super stoked and excited. I'm going to have her introduce herself always because I don't like to forget any credentials. I don't like to forget stuff. I need them to get everything. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
My name is Dr.Natassia Johnson. So credentials, I am an LPC, licensed professional counselor, and I'm also an LP, licensed psychologist, more specifically a licensed clinical psychologist.
Love it. And she looks like us, guys. I'm so excited about that. And so I invited her on. I met her at Melanin Minds. So many of you know that I was on a couple of the panels at Melanin Minds. And so we had break time and we were just sitting at the table across from each other. And I'm like, hey, what's your name? You know, We just introduced ourselves. And so we just connected. And I was like, hey, you're perfect for my show because we talk a lot about mental health and self-care and just making sure that we're healthy all the way around, not just looking healthy on the outside, right? We need to be healthy mentally and physically. So I picked the topic for today, but I kind of want to also ask her about how she got into this industry. Like, were you always passionate about mental health? Or was it just something that you developed over time?
Yeah. So I always tell the same story when people ask me, like, so what made you want to be a therapist? So back in middle school, I was like, one of 4 friends that we all stuck together and did things together and had fun. And I remember being the person that my friends would call up for advice. And so I remember back when you didn't have cell phones and you had to actually call from your home phone, they would call me up and I would talk to them. And I just remember loving the feeling of like being somebody's confidant, having them open up to me about something that was really important to them, something that mattered to them. And being able to give advice. I don't know the quality of advice that I gave as a middle schooler, but I loved like that feeling of like, as I like to call it, like being somebody's soft place to fall.
Yes.
And so from then I got sort of the bug, so to speak. And so I knew I wanted to do something psychology related, something helping people, talking to people. And so it just sort of blossomed from there.
Okay. Yeah. I love it. And so do you find yourself, is your clientele like a mix, or do you find people, because I know me, this is me. When I first said I was going to counseling or, trying to receive therapy, I'm like, I want to find somebody who looks like me. I'm going through like because you have to see who accepts your insurance and stuff like that. So you're trying to find somebody who looks like you. Have you ever had an experience where someone actually tells you like, hey, I'm so happy I found you?
Yes. They say, pretty much like what you were saying at the beginning, like somebody that looks like us. Like they're like, because I usually don't work with people that look like me, and so I'm usually the only one, and I know people have had that experience.
Yes.
We're the only Black person in the
Yes.
And so I've had patients tell me, oh God, I'm so happy that I found you. And I also think it helps just because when they come in with the type of hair that they have, when I have the type of hair that they have, that even feels good too.
Yeah.
When we talk about social issues, that I'm up on the social issues, that I sort of see things in a very clear way that maybe they don't get from other therapists. And so, yeah, just that cultural sensitivity piece. I know that's like a buzzword or buzz phrase these days, but like that real cultural sensitivity is what people are looking for and they're craving.
Yeah, because I think oftentimes, as a Black woman, we feel misunderstood. We feel like nobody really gets us. Like, they don't understand. Like you said, even something simple as my hair. Like, I wear braids and I change it. And that's just like a part of our culture. But some people, they don't get it. So it's always good to have a safe space, like you said, with someone you can relate to. So moving into what's new for you. So what's new? So how long have you been into your field, and like what are some new things that you've learned?
Yeah. So I've been in my field really long. I'll give away my age. So I started when I was so I got my bachelor's in psychology. And so when I was 22, 23 is when I got my real first job in mental health. And so that was about 18 years ago or so.
Oh, wow.
My
Girl,
age,
you look good. I would have never guessed that, ever.
And so that was my first foray into mental health. And just from there, like just working at different mental health facilities, where it's like residential treatment centers or PHPs, partial hospitalization programs, just so many different levels of care. And then I got my LPC in my 20s, got my LP, licensed psychologist, in my 30s. And it was just like a slow progression. And I think it's really important to say this because I have a feeling there's other people out there like me where when I was in my 20s, I got my master's and I did not get my PhD because I didn't think I was smart enough to get my PhD.
You thought it was too much work.
I thought it was too much. I thought I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. And so that it took me a while to like actually have some faith in myself and then go back for my PhD in my 30s. I think that's really important. Especially Black women, they think they can't sort of excel and try and go to the top.
Yes.
That maybe they're going to land somewhere in the middle.
We always feel like like it's too late or like, we have to be mediocre.
Or be just happy with what we have. Like, just be grateful for what you have. Don't sort of reach too high, be too ambitious.
Right.
Like that. I was thinking about that Beyonce song, but anyway, when she talks about that, like, that was such a good point.
I was actually thinking about that on the way here. So my mom passed away at 41, and my maternal grandmother passed away. It's going to be 2 years. I think we're coming up on 2 years. But I was thinking, I'm like, man, there's just certain things that they didn't get to experience. Yeah. And so I'm like, but we were taught that if we grow up and get a good job and we make enough money to sustain ourselves, then that's good enough. So it's crazy that you brought that up because I was literally thinking about that this morning. And I'm like, no, but I want to try caviar one day, or I want to be able to go and do what I want to do, and not feel like I can't do it because I'm not good enough, or I'm never going to be this, at this level. And so that was an amazing point. And so I hope you guys took that to heart and really take it to mind, because you can do anything you want to do. Like, as long as this is already set, because we stay in here so much sometimes,
You just have those, you have those thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, that enough. And day after day, year after year, when that happens over and over and over, you believe it.
Yes.
And it's so hard to undo that belief.
And it's easier to think negative for some reason. Do you kind of like get that a lot from people when they come to you? Because it seems like it's easier automatically to like, let's throw a pity party. We're both going to talk about negative things.
It's so funny you say that. I will tell my patients sometimes, I'll be like, if I asked you to name 10 things that you don't like about yourself right now, you could probably do that in less than a minute. Right. If I ask you to name 10 things you do like about yourself or that you do think you're good at, we'll be here all night. Like, I will say that to people. And it's just so true. And not only to say something that you think you're good at or positive about yourself, but to actually believe what you're saying. Yes. Like, it's one thing to say it and just say it for, like, you know, maybe for show or to try and, you know, maybe make yourself think it or make others believe it. But for you to actually believe it deep down, that's a different story.
It is.
You know?
It is. Because that's the first step, is just believing it, like seeing yourself already there. But we have these blinders on, and it's like we got to take those off in order to really access our full potential.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who is interested in going into your field?
Oh, gosh. Advice. Well, sort of what you said earlier. If you can, find somebody that looks like you that does it. Like, I was lucky enough in my 20s when I was working towards getting my LPC license. My actual supervisor was and is a Black female psychologist.
Cool.
And I'm still in touch with her till this day. And just seeing her and knowing she did it was so inspirational for me.
I think that makes you more excited about it too. Like when you're going through the process and you kind of have that person that's already done it, and she's a Black woman, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be like her. I'm learning from her how she did it, how she can. And you know, like you said, you've been in workplace environments where you're the only Black person, and so it's good to have that person that you can call and be like, look, I'm trying to navigate the situation. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, and when I went back to school, when I went back for my Ph.D, I got it in New York. And so I would fly back home to Houston every summer. And I would make it a point to meet with her. Meet with all the other LPCs that she had helped get their license. And we'd sort of have a dinner or a lunch together. And it was just so nice seeing her again and her asking me what I've been up to. And I would think about her a lot when I was sort of going up that ladder.
Okay. I love it. Y'all, it's just something about being around your people. You get that sense of, and it's not that, you know, we can't mingle and get to know other people. It's just the comfort, I think. Yeah. It's because we have to get out of our comfort zone. That's inevitable. But being in a place where, you know, you feel like people relate. Yeah. So what's new? What's new? What's
happening with me?
Yes.
So I'm finishing up my postdoc right now. I'll be done in a few weeks, and I'm actually starting my own private practice.
I love it.
I'm really excited.
We got to put some claps in there for that.
So that'll be launching in a few weeks. I can give the website.
Yes.
dnjpsychology.com.
Okay. It'll be on the screen.
Thank you. And so that'll be up in a few weeks. So early September-ish. You can go to that website, and I'll be taking clients both in person and virtual. And I'm just really excited to see people in the Houston area.
So are you going to be able to accept insurance, or are you taking cash or
So I'll be
cards?
all self-pay.
Okay. Self-pay.
And I'm part of something that's called PsyPact, which means that not only can I see people in Texas, but I can see people that live in other PsyPact states. And so on my website, there will be a link that says telepsychology. And so you can click on that link, and if you're in that state, if you're a resident of that state, even though I live in Houston, Texas, if you're a resident in that state, you and I can do a telepsychology. We can do virtual
Super cool.
work.
Super cool. Super cool. I love that. So we'll have all of the information on the screen for you guys. And that way, y'all, look, you can, and this is the perfect time because her website is up at this time when this episode is coming out. So go over there, check it out, because everyone needs somebody. Like, we all need somebody. We think we don't, but we do. And someone that's non-biased, not your friend, not your family member, you know.
Oh my God, that's so important. That's so, because as much as we love our family and friends, they have angles. They have certain interests of their own, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But having somebody that tries to be as unbiased as possible, tries to be as objective as possible, that's really important. They don't have a stake in what, you know, like a personal stake in what you do in your life, like maybe friends and family do, that can sometimes steer you the wrong way. Again, not always intentionally, but having that neutral party, that therapist, that's sort of a different ballgame.
It is. So it will change your life. I'm telling you, it really will. And then even when you think you're done going through the process, kind of have those check-in points.
Yeah.
I learned that because I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm done with it. And then I'm like, I think I need to do like at least a check-in every 90 days or something because, we need that.
And that's what I usually tell people, like, because, I plan on seeing people weekly in my practice, at least to start out with, weekly. But it's sort of like you don't just sort of start seeing them for weekly for like months and years and then suddenly stop. Like you want to sort of taper off. Like maybe, oh, I think I can start seeing you once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And do that for a little bit. Or, oh, I think I can see you for monthly check-ins and do that for a little bit. So you sort of want to ease out of it if you even decide to stop therapy in the first place, because people can go for years, which there's no shame in that.
No
shame at all.
I think we all need that safe space. So guys, we have the doctor here, and I had to get the relationship questions in about, from a clinical standpoint. And so, because you guys are always asking questions about relationships, my relationship episodes always go. So I was like, well, perfect time to get a real professional opinion on some of these things. So I think one of the major questions that I get a lot is, when do you know it's time to like let something go? So if a client comes to you and they're like, saying, I'm stressed out, this is happening, what do I do? How do you guide them through that process?
Okay. Well, so I'm more of, I'll just give my theoretical orientation. I'm more of a psychodynamic therapist.
Oh, okay.
And so I really like to explore your past experiences, especially childhood. That's really big with psychodynamic therapists. I like to explore your unconscious process, what's going on unconsciously that you're not aware of, that's actually playing a role in who you pick romantically in your life.
Wow.
I like to focus on recurrent themes that come up over and over. I like to focus on our relationship, how we interact with each other, how we react to each other, because oftentimes the way you relate to others in your life, you bring that in the therapy room. And so for me, I first explore what's going on, and then I sort of try to zone in on helping them figure out, why they're in the relationship in the first place, what draws them to this relationship that's maybe not so healthy anymore.
Right. Oh, and I love that you actually get into the childhood, because I don't think we realize sometimes that we're picking a person based off of maybe what we saw in our household or the men we were around growing up. And it's like, wow. And then you meet this guy and he's displaying these traits that maybe your dad displayed or your uncle or whomever. But
so true.
It's so key to explore, like, why am I attracting the same type of guy or a woman? Or if you're a guy, it's like, this is the same person in a different body. That's crazy.
And even though it's not, the phrase I like to use often is like, we do what is familiar to us, not necessarily what is comfortable to us.
Wow.
So we will pick the familiar person, what we're used to growing up with, even if that was really traumatizing growing up, even if that was really sad, scary, etc. So we're familiar with it, and that's what we're drawn to as adults, and we're not comfortable with it, but it's what we know. It's what we grew up with for years.
I think we always revert back to what we know, too. I always tell my friends, I'm like, maybe your type isn't your type. Like, maybe that's the problem. Like, maybe that's not really your type, but you think it is, because everyone says, oh, well, he's not my type or she's not my type. But then you start talking to a person and you're like, oh, I like you. So I think exploring is really, really key when you're entering into relationships. When do you think that it's time to let something go?
To let the relationship
go. You need to be done with this. This is either physically draining for you or mentally draining for you, and it's not just good for your overall health.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I feel like people get that dawns on them a little bit late. Like they get those early signs that something's wrong, that something's not right about this relationship, that I'm not maybe being treated the way I want to be treated, I'm not getting what I deserve, but I'm going to be able to change this person. Or what I'm seeing is not actually what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing it straight. This person really does care about me, love me. I'm going at it in a different angle that's not right. So we sort of talk ourselves out of what actually is good for us.
Wow. And oh my God, that is so powerful, because we do. That's why you see people like they break up and then they're back together and then they break up and then you're like, okay, are y'all together or not? You know, like what's going on here? Have you ever had a client come to you and they're like, I'm about to lose it, like they're suicidal almost over a relationship?
Over a relationship, I don't know if it's been necessarily over relationship. They're really distraught over that relationship, and they're not knowing why they're in the relationship, and they're feeling like sort of they're beating their head up against the wall, and you know the same things keep happening over and over, and they don't understand why, and it's just really like they're really distraught.
Okay. So suicidal clients, how do you deal with them? Like, are you on call for your clients? Like, if there's an emergency, is there like something that they can do to get to you or?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients, they have my email, and so I tell them reach out, and I'm always on my phone, as many of us are, so I'm always checking my email. So it's reach out if you're really struggling, and so yeah, I will. Some of them have my phone number, and so. It's if you're ever struggling. I mean, the first is always like if you can't get in contact with me, call 911. Like,
right.
That's the call authorities if you really feel like you can't keep yourself safe.
Right.
But I'm sort of a close second, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you only deal with adults?
Yeah, 18 plus.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That's sort of my. That's the population that I really love to work with.
Okay. Women, men, everyone?
Yeah, women, men, especially young adults I really love working with, sort of 18 to like early 30s. Because I really love working on issues of like trying to individuate from your family, trying to find your own identity that's separate from your family, but also still have that family connection. That's very difficult to negotiate, young people. Like, how do I be my own person, but how do I still be part of this system? Part of this family unit. It's very difficult.
I love how you just segue right into that because I wanted to ask you about that. For someone who's like really trying to figure life out and maybe they live around their family or maybe they live in the house with their family and they just feel like, how am I going to start my own life and create my own way?
Yeah.
And I'm just struggling. I don't know where to start.
I mean, I think a big thing, it can be so difficult when you're living with family, but like having clear boundaries. Boundaries is sort of a buzzword, especially these days. Like, have your boundaries. But it's really about starting small and, saying what you will put up with and what you won't put up with. And that can be really difficult when you're under one roof, one household, especially because family gets really comfortable with each other. You get really comfortable with each other, so sometimes you think you can treat each other any old way. Yeah. And it's like, no, I'm still a person. I may be your mom, your dad, your brother, sister, aunt, uncle, whatever, but I'm still a person. I have my own needs, I have my own wants, I have my own boundaries. So as you do you, and let's try and respect each other's boundaries. Because you want to be your own person, again, even though you're in a system with your family.
Yeah, and I think people avoid those conversations because they don't want the confrontation, right? Yeah. They don't want
the rejection. Abandonment. People are really scared that you're gonna abandon me, even if it's not physically, but like emotionally and psychologically, you're gonna pull away from me.
Yeah. Because we have this thing, right, in the Black community where it's like, oh, I'm gonna cut you off, or I'm cutting this person off, and it's like, well, I'm only just trying to tell you how I feel, but now you're not talking to me anymore. Yeah. And so a lot of young people, I know young ladies, like they get really like, well, my mom's not talking to me,
right?
Because I said X, Y, Z, but. When do you think it's okay for people to start really voicing their feelings and opinions? Because, when you grow up in households that are like, I'm the parent, you do what I say, it's kind of hard for people to like.
I mean, it's so difficult because when you're young, like, you rely on your parent for, like, survival. Like, they bring in the money. They, if you're a teenager or even young adults that still live at home, like, and they're still trying to find their way and find their own means of income so that they can support themselves once they move out, like, that can be really difficult. It's so, I mean, there's not, like, one answer to it, but it's so hard to negotiate. Because, again, you rely on them for survival, and so it's almost like, sometimes you have to bite your tongue or kind of be passive, and that doesn't feel good.
Because if you're not, you're disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
You know, and those definitely couldn't be your intentions all the time. Like, you're not wanting to be disrespectful, but maybe because you're saying something that's true or you're saying something that is around the truth, it's like, don't say
Yeah.
that. You can't say that,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think navigating those conversations is still something that I think we have to work on in our community, because we're like, what happens in this house stays in this house. Like, we're just taught to be quiet for some reason. At church, we got to be quiet. Over here, we have to be quiet. Like, when I started thinking about how many places I went that my parents were like, shh,
Yeah.
you know, like, don't talk.
Oh my gosh. You're reminding me of something that one of the gentlemen at Melanin Minds, the conference, said. I wish I remembered his name now so I can give him a shout out. But he said he grew up with the phrase, you can have roaches, but you can't have rats. I don't know if you were at that talk.
I don't know if I was at that one.
I mean, that hit me in the audience. I was like, oh my God. Like, but yeah, you can have roaches. Like, you can have your own little family drama, your own little family issues, but that stays in-house. Like, you don't talk to other people about your stuff, about your drama, about your family trauma, about all that generational stuff that we try and keep under lock and key. But then when you do that, that can kind of like rot you from inside. Which is another reason to have somebody you can confide in, like a therapist.
Yes.
That's neutral, that knows about these intergenerational trauma, that can really help you process it.
Yes, because I think that's all it takes, is us like taking time to really go through the process and really, really like own our truth.
Yep.
And have a space where I can actually say this out loud and not be judged, you know?
It's so funny you say it out loud, because it's so different when you have things going through your mind. When you say it out loud, you have a different experience with it. Like, and, you know, full disclosure, I've been in therapy before, off and on. Since my 20s, and so it's different when I say something out loud. It impacts me different, and you can have so many like insights and revelations just by saying it out loud in a room with your therapist.
No, that's so true. I grew up where my dad was in and out of prison. And so I would go, like, on Saturdays, that was our thing. Like, we went to prisons to visit my dad. So, you know, at prisons, you have to, like, take your shoes off, you know, all this stuff. Like, you feel like a prisoner when you're going in there to visit. But I didn't realize how traumatizing that was for me. And then I had never talked about how it made me feel out loud. Like, how it made me feel that my dad missed my wedding. Like, all these things. I had never really said that stuff out loud. I'm like, I'm really, like, this is some stuff I really need to deal with. Like, I don't talk about it. Like, when he calls, I just talk normal. You know, I just whatever. But when I said it out loud, I really had to live in that moment, you know?
Yeah, and it's so funny because there have been times in therapy where I'll say it out loud and my voice kind of cracks. And I get choked up, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this was impacting me the way it is until I said it, and I, like, lost my breath, or I'm like, you know, you start getting the tears, and you're like, oh, this really has done a number on me. And it's almost like
I don't know, it's like a little ache in your heart and your body. You get, like, you start sweating, you feel like, you know, ashamed. But that's kind of what therapy does, is like that. The therapist is there to really make you feel comfortable and make you feel like it's okay to share. Because I think when we're sharing with people that we know, like, personally, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, and it's not only about sharing in therapy, it's about feeling in therapy. Like, I'll have clients who share what went on, but I will stop them while they're sharing and say, let's feel what you're feeling right now, or what emotion is coming up for you right now. So it's not only about talking it out, but experiencing whatever emotion that you've kept down and kept buried for so long, that it's important for it to have its space in the room.
Yes, and we don't slow down enough.
If anything, they speed up when they're talking. And
let me hurry up.
Yeah, because I'm feeling this emotion. I want to run from it right now, so I'm just going to keep talking through it. And I'm like, whoa.
Yep.
Let's put the brakes on it.
That was me. My first time, I'm like... And I kept saying to my friend, I'm like, I don't like her. She looked like me. She was nice. But I was like, I don't like her. I don't want to do this.
That's a good sign. I will tell some people that sometimes if you don't like your therapist, or you're like feeling kind of about him or her, that's actually sometimes a good sign, because they're hitting on something that you're really needing to work on.
Yes.
And so
I loved her by the end of it. By the like 5th session, I'm like, oh, I like you. Like, I can. But it's like getting through those first sessions can be difficult.
Yes.
But I had a friend who had been through it, and she's like, no, Courtney, stick it out. You know, it gets better. I promise it gets better. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back. I don't like it. So if you go through that phase, definitely stick it out because it's definitely worth it. But like she said, it's because they're hitting something is making those feelings come out and you don't like it.
Yeah, and it's so normal not to like your therapist. I encourage my patients to tell me when I strike a chord with them, when they get angry at me or pissed, or I say something and they're like, I don't like how you said that, Dr. Johnson.
Right.
Or I don't, like, I want to hear that. Like, please tell me. Like, I want to know. Because we need to make space for that. We need to work through that. We need to process it, talk about it.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're always liking your therapist, sometimes I'm kind of suspicious of that, to be quite honest. Like,
because y'all might just be becoming friends.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Y'all might be
this isn't a
out.
friendship. This isn't a friendship.
Not.
It's so different than a friendship, which is a whole other podcast episode in itself.
Right.
Like, your therapist is not your friend. You have friendly feelings towards them. They have friendly feelings towards you, of course, but it's totally different. Totally different relationship.
So accountability, how do you hold your clients accountable? Like if you get, because y'all, the worst thing I hated, and don't pitch me for this, the homework they give you, right? I don't like homework. I was like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to write this down. I don't want to. She's like, did you do your homework? No, I didn't do it.
It's so funny you say that. It depends on the type of therapist you get, what their theoretical orientation is. Like I said before, I'm psychodynamic. I very rarely give homework.
Okay.
Yeah. So some therapists are all about homework, which is fine. All therapists have their own styles, their own ways of working. But I don't do that as much. It'll happen once every blue moon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. I love it. So that's good to know, like the difference between like all the different names.
All the different types of theoretical orientations.
Yeah.
That's something you can Google. That's something that I'll have on my website. Like I'll have a link that says a link to psychodynamic therapy, and it'll take you to the Psychology Today website that explains a little bit of the bullet points of what psychodynamic therapy is.
Perfect. I definitely need to go over there and check it out. Because that's crucial when you're choosing your therapist. Like you really need to know, I guess, what they specialize in. We got through she stopped asking me about the homework because I was like,
because you stopped doing it. Okay.
I'm busy. I don't do it. So yeah, that's funny.
That's cool. She worked with you.
She did.
Like
she
that.
worked
you gotta
with
be
me.
Flexible
We got through it. Yeah, we got through it. But definitely, guys, go to her website, check out the different types of therapists, and find the one that's right for you. Because unpacking the trauma is the most difficult part.
Yeah,
I think I'm not a therapist, but I'm like that part. I didn't want to go backwards for some reason, like going and thinking about what happened when I was a kid. And so I love that you do that. Because it really helps. Because that can really show you like why you behave the way you do, why you do some of the things you do. Because we need to know this, and we need to be able to change it if it's negative.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I hate these sort of cliche phrases in therapy, but what I'm about to say is, I think, real. Like, sometimes you have to go backwards to go forwards. Like, you really have to sift through that past stuff, those past experiences, so you can get to where you want to be.
Wow, that's so powerful. So powerful. What would you say to someone who is looking for a therapist? What are like 3 main things they should look for?
3 main things they look for. So, you want to, I love this question because I will send people questions to ask a therapist. Like you can even Google good questions to ask your therapist. But some of the things that I think are really important are, what type of population do you work with? What type of presenting issues do you usually work with? And if I were to work with you, how might we tackle it? Like, what are some of your ways that you like to tackle these common issues that you work with people? So that's one. Also, how long do you think I will be in therapy with you? Now, that's a question that sometimes I don't even like getting that question, but it's good to get an idea of how long they think, how long they usually work with a client. Like, is it months? Is it short-term therapy? Is it long-term therapy? Again, that usually coincides with your theoretical orientation. So what do you anticipate in terms of how long we might work together? So those are 2 really good ones. I mean, there's so many good ones. Are we going to maybe, is it okay if I want to take breaks at time during therapy? Because some therapists have their thoughts on that, have their certain ways of wanting to work. So those are three really good ones, but there's like so many. Like, again, you just Google and you say, I'll put in good questions to ask a therapist, and then I'll usually save it as a document and send it to my clients that I'm about to terminate with, that are going to go on to another therapist for whatever reason, if I'm leaving the company or whatever it might be. And I say, ask these questions of your therapist. You really want to make sure that y'all are going to be a good fit, that you think you can do good work with them. So don't be scared. Of course, they're going to ask you a lot of questions, but this is just as much your process as it is theirs. And you want to make sure that you're getting somebody that you think you're going to do good work with.
Okay. So you actually refer them if you feel like they need to see another therapist. You actually
so through my
out.
training, usually you would only stay at a place maybe 1 year because you're doing your externship during my Ph.D. So you'll stay at some place during a year, and then you'll move on to your next placement. This particular postdoc I'm in was a 2-year postdoc. Okay. So I'm saying goodbye to a lot of my patients in the next few weeks. And so I've been having that conversation with a lot of them, saying, I can send you information, or you can Google questions to ask a therapist. Like, don't just, the first one you meet with is the first one you stay with. Like, I tell them to shop around. Like, you would shop around for a car, or shop around for like a good outfit, or whatever. Like, you shop around for therapists. Meet with like 2, 3, 4 to get a feel of what's out there, to get a feel of what you think you're going to work well with.
I love it. Yeah, because you need to find who's a good fit for you. I think when I was looking for someone who I could relate to, I was looking for someone who was a little older, because I didn't want anyone younger than me, the whole, like, you're not wise enough. But anyway, that was my thing. It made me feel more comfortable. I think I was looking for that vibe. And so I guess you just have to figure out what's going to work for you and what you feel comfortable with. So have you participated in any like mental health conferences? Like, do you go out and provide like resources in other areas outside of just seeing your clients?
So I attend mental health conferences. I haven't like spoken at one yet or anything like that, but I love going to conferences, to lectures, to talks, to anything. Like, I just love soaking up all that information. It's so fun.
How is it engaging with other therapists?
It's so fun.
It's fun.
It's so fun.
Do you all kind of like get each other?
From time to time, but no, it's like we have a common language. Like, we have common, there's so many commonalities. Like, usually therapists get into this field for similar reasons, and so you kind of know that sometimes when you meet a therapist, and so you just have that commonality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to prescribe medicine? Do you prescribe medicine?
No. Okay. But there are some psychologists in certain states. You would have to take, I believe it's like extra courses, so that you can prescribe medicine. But it's certain states that are allowing that, and that's something newer in the field, I believe. But but no, I don't prescribe medication.
Have you ever encountered a client where you're like, okay, something deeper is going on, I need to make sure they get the right help, or they get to the right person?
Yeah. For sure. Like you were asking me earlier, like clients that feel like they can't keep themselves safe, that are suicidal. Sometimes they need a higher level of care, is what we call it. So a place where that's a little bit more structured, that can keep an eye out on them and help them keep themselves safe. So sometimes you have to do that.
Okay. So you mentioned also working at like mental health facilities, like what do you call them? Psych wards and things like that.
Yeah, inpatient hospitals, residential treatment facilities.
How was that?
Those were, I loved it. Okay. I loved it. Like, that's where you get the best experience.
Oh, wow.
That's where you get the best experience. And not only from the patients that you work with, from like your colleagues that have been in the business for years. Like, in my 20s, I'll shout out to the Mittinger Clinic. That's where one of the places I worked, and they do some great work there.
Wow.
And that's where I learned so much in my 20s about how, not only like mental health, but how I wanted to be as a therapist, because I worked with so many great therapists out there.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Do the patients there ever like get to a point where they can leave? Or are they there like, you're like, okay, they're going to be here for a while?
Well, it differs per per patient, but certain levels of care, they have certain average number of days that people stay. But the ultimate goal, of course, I think with any patient is to where they can get to the outpatient level of care. So where they see a therapist in their community, whether it's once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month, where eventually maybe they take a break from therapy, and that can vary from months to years. It's like, you get back into therapy when maybe you think you need to, maybe you think you need a tune-up, as we sometimes call it. But it's just different for everybody in terms of how long they stay at each level of care.
Okay. I love that. I'm just thinking, my brain's going, because I'm like, wow. Because you only see, like, I've never personally been to a psych ward, so you only see it on TV. And, sometimes it can get, like, a negative perception, like, okay, they're never leaving, right?
Yeah.
They're never going to get out and be able to function.
I mean, there's some people that, are unfortunately not functioning at a level where they can get out sooner than other people. And so sometimes they'll stay there a bit longer. But yeah, like I said, it varies per person.
Okay. So how did your family feel about you being a therapist? Are they kind of like, you're always analyzing me, or they're just kind of like, that's what she does?
Yes, I get that a lot. I get that a lot. I love you, Mom. But my mom used to sometimes say that to me. You're analyzing me. Stop psychoanalyzing me. My mom and my dad.
Okay.
But they love me. They're so proud of me. But yeah, that's one of the things we have to work on as a therapist. When you're talking to your family and your friends,
Yes.
you know this, you're not their therapist.
I know.
You're their family or their friend. And so you need to shut it off, or try and shut it off. But it's so hard because it becomes a part of you. Like, the way you think as a therapist just becomes a part of the way you think as a human being.
And you really, you mean well.
You do.
It's like, you have parentage.
And it just comes out when you're not even, it's like, it's part of you now. So how does it not, like, sometimes find its way in conversations? Like the way you might ask a question to a patient, you might ask it the same way to your family, and then they look at you, they side-eye you like, I know why you're asking me that question. But it's like, it's so hard. It's just so hard to cut it off.
It is to balance both, because people are like, what? Don't be asking me that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Not today. Not today. They don't want to hear it. I ask because people never get it. They never... Yeah. And you can't expect them to. They haven't been to school. They haven't been through the training. But it's like they think you're like foreign or something. Yeah. I don't know. It's
and you mean
weird.
well, like you were saying.
Well.
You mean well.
Yeah.
You don't. It's just sometimes hard to cut it off. It becomes a part of you. It becomes a part of how you move through the world in general.
Yes. So are you originally from Houston?
Originally, so pretty much. I mean, I was born in San Antonio, but yeah, Houston. Okay. Where I grew up.
Oh, it's all
Houston,
the same.
Dallas, San Antonio. We're all.
Yeah, there's not much in San Antonio though. I'm just starting to realize that, like, as far as like careers and stuff like that,
really?
or like upping the busy life, because Houston's so busy. In San Antonio, we just went there last month, it just seems so quiet and just chill.
Anytime I think of San Antonio, all I think of is like the Riverwalk. Not that I'm not hating on San Antonio at all. I love it, but the Alamo, the Air Force Base, because both of my parents were in the Air Force, so Randolph Air Force Base, shout out.
But so, yeah, I don't know, because we had a couple on our podcast. Was it like 2 weeks ago? They're from San Antonio. They just moved to Houston, and so they're like, oh, they love Houston. Yeah, and no, they're like, I don't think we're going back.
Yeah, Houston's great. I love it.
I love it. So you're not going back either?
No. No, I think I'm here to stay.
She's here to stay. No. And that is so funny. So her private practice I'm so excited for that. Y'all, if you can, please go check out her website. We want to send her all the business as possible. She's self-pay. Make sure you go over there. So there's no excuses. Because that's always an excuse.
Yeah.
Don't make an excuse. Just go. Schooling. So how long in total did you go to school before we wrap up?
Oh gosh. Okay, so undergrad was 4 years. So the bachelor's in psychology, the master's in counseling was 3 years, and then my Ph.D. was 5 years total. So
okay.
5, 3, and 4, whatever that is. 12?
12 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time. She earned that doctor title. Okay, so this is the part of the episode where I like to turn the tables and say, do you have any questions for me? And now she's going to psychoanalyze me, guys. Here we go. I'm ready.
I want to know how you got into the field. Like, what made you want to be a therapist?
what made me want to be a therapist is that, like, I was like you, like, I always, like, would sit there and be like, this person, yeah, you need help. But I wanted to know how to help them from a professional standpoint, not just my personal opinion about things.
Yeah.
And so that was part of my reasoning. It's like, I want to help people. I want to give them advice, but I also want to give them advice from a professional standpoint and not just what I think, you know, just giving them that sound advice. So that was one of the reasons, because I saw a lot of people in my family, they still suffer. Like, a lot of them still need to go to counseling, including my dad, because I spoke about my dad earlier in the episode. And so I'm finding that what his behavior is just repeating. So, yeah. So just like when I was a kid, he was in and out of jail. Part of my young adulthood, he was in and out of jail. And then just recently, he got arrested and is possibly going back to jail. So it's just like these behaviors repeated throughout my lifetime. So I'm just like, I need to I want to do this. Like, I want to help people. I want to get behind the reasoning, you know, and unpack that.
Yeah, and we're trying to figure out, like, who the people that we're closest to, we're trying to figure out what makes them tick. You know, what makes them do what they do. Not only what makes us do what we do, what makes us tick, but those people around us that we really love. I've found that when I talk to the therapist that like that's a commonality.
Yeah, and it affects us in ways you think like, oh, well, I'm successful, or oh, well, but it really does affect you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, so that was really, really my main reason. So
what made you want to start this podcast?
Well, I was already doing a podcast with my husband, but we work well together, but we're also so different. And so we're passionate about different things. And so I'm like, man, I really want to reach the people that are like me, that can relate to me, you know, that need what I have to offer. And so that was my reasoning, you know, creating a safe space, providing mental health resources, bringing other people on that look like us, that showing little Black girls, like, you can do whatever you want to be. Like, look at all these successful women. And, you know, we all have trauma. We all have things that we've been through, but there's a way to get the help that you need, balance it, and still be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because I talked about this at Melanin Minds, balance. People keep throwing around balance, and it's like, man, sometimes you're not balanced, and that's okay, but you can still push forward and be successful.
Yeah, it's not about finding perfect balance, because that's not possible.
Right.
That doesn't exist. That's a whole other
right,
podcast.
A whole
about
nother podcast.
perfectionism
Yes.
And, you know, yeah, but trying to get as close to balance as possible that you can every day. Some days are going to be better than others, but just continuing to try.
Yeah, and doing what makes you feel good. Like, we suppress our feelings a lot, but it's like, how does it make you feel? Like the food you eat, what you're drinking, you know, who you're talking to. Like, how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And so really, really, you know, tapping into your body and yourself and knowing your emotions and what makes you successful and what makes you thrive. Yeah.
I love that, because oftentimes I'll ask, like, how the person is feeling in a session, and all I get back are thoughts. Like, feelings and thoughts are two different things, so I have to ask it again. So how are you feeling, though, in this moment? You know, like, really peg down the feeling, get in touch with yourself.
Yeah, because there's some mornings you wake up, you're energetic, you do your morning routine, you know, and then there's some mornings you're like, okay, I want to stay in this bed a little longer, you know, and so I think we just have to be real that every day is not going to be wake up, do this, do that, do that, and it's okay that I'm off a little bit. It's okay that I don't eat breakfast at 12 one day. It's okay. You're not going to die. It's fine.
Yeah, this isn't a movie.
Right.
Have to try and be perfect. No.
There you go. And so I think when we show more of our imperfections, it allows other people to feel like, hey, I can do that. I can do this.
Yes. Oh, that's I was about to go on a rant, but yes, so true.
Yeah.
Imperfections. They're beautiful.
They are, because we're all different. And, you know, when we can embrace it and just be like, okay, every time I get behind this camera, my hair's not going to be done. And that's okay. Because this is my platform.
Yep.
So that's something that I had to get comfortable with too. So this platform has really helped me, but I also feel like it helped other people as well, because it gives them a chance to get their business out there and, you know, and people start following them.
Thank
and
you so much
kind of,
for that.
you know what I'm saying?
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem. This is a perfect time for her to come on too, guys. I'm excited for her.
Yay, thank you.
I'm so excited. Any more questions?
Gosh. I feel like I'm going to ask you a bunch once we get off camera.
Right? When we get off camera.
Yeah.
That's usually when I get the best
Right?
content. I'm like, man, we should have recorded that.
Right. I'm just so glad that we made contact at this conference. Like,
That conference was amazing.
it was so good. I can't wait till next
Yeah.
year's.
And hopefully, Legina, if you're watching, we get her on the panel or as a workshop leader for next year, because that would be great.
I want to do it. I was asking them. I went up to them and I was like, "Hey, how do I do this next year?" They were like, "Oh, well, it's gonna probably come out in January, the application." I was like, "I will be on it.
Yes.
I will be at that website filling out the application."
Yeah, it's just a mini little application, and like you said, everybody's connected. I had another person that was there, and she was on last week, and so it's just cool to see everybody connecting, and the space was just so inviting, and so everybody.
It was a wonderful weekend.
It really was.
Wonderful weekend.
It really was. It really was. Well, anything else you want to leave with the people before we close?
Just therapy is amazing. It's not always easy, but the rewards are the insights, the rewards, the changes that you can make in your life. Like, just give it a go.
Just try it.
Just try it. A leap of faith.
Yes. Take the risk. Take the leap. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday, guys. We're recording on a Saturday and coming, and I definitely appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Well, guys, that concludes our episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Allow Yourself Grace podcast. For additional information about today's episode, please click the link in the show notes below. To learn more about our Grace Girls community and other resources we have to offer, head over to www.allowyourselfgrace.com. Until next time, Grace Girls, I love you all, be blessed, and continue to strive for success.